Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Well, hope you all had a very good weekend. There is so much news to talk about that I don't have enough time to talk about it, but I did pick 3 topics, and one of them is the fall of Afghanistan. What does it mean to you and I? It's not just some far-off place that we don't have to worry about. Everything has ripple effects, and the Taliban has taken over again. Those poor, poor people in Afghanistan, especially the women. Oh, my gosh. My heart goes out to them. And what does it mean? All right. The Americans, as I'm on the show live with you on Sunday afternoon, Israel time, I believe, is still burning their documents and their embassies and trying to destroy everything before they scramble out. We're going to talk also about the exploding crime wave in the United States that's taking place, and in Lebanon, Israel's northern neighbor. Its citizens are trying to get out of the country and flee if they can get their hands on a passport and a visa somewhere, because electricity gone in many places, luxury items don't exist unless you are, I don't know what. People can't get bread. The bakeries have stopped baking bread. They are complaining they can't do it without electricity. People are fleeing there. What is happening in Lebanon? We see it collapsing and crumbling in front of our eyes. We're going to be talking about all of these 3 topics on the show today. I want to say hi to everybody who's listening in from all over the world. Hello, everybody from all over the United States and Israel and Canada, Australia, the land down under, the United Kingdom, Russia, Argentina, the Philippines, and on and on and on. Hello to everybody. It's good to see you here with me on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. If you like our programming, please feel free to support us. There's a donate button on our homepage at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. You can also get a medallion with your name on it on our wall of fame to those that contribute and help support the station. We really, really appreciate it. Go to IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com and look for that donate button. All right. Well, we'll be back after the break. Don't go anywhere.
The return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel was prophesied in the Bible thousands of years ago and is coming true today. Shalom. Join me, Josh Wander, on Israel Unplugged. Listen in as we delve into the spiritual and physical aspects of the Jewish return to Zion. We'll discuss the biblically mandated, historic, and of course practical understandings of this incredible transition from exile to redemption. That's Israel Unplugged, every Monday on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
So much to talk about. You're listening to the Tamar Yonah Show here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. We are going to be jumping around the world with different news stories, and there are so many, one on top of another on top of another. We're going to start out with the fall of Afghanistan, and what does that mean for you and me? Don't think of it as some far-off place and it doesn't matter, because the ripple effects will reach further and further and further. Let me just read you a couple of the things being posted now here just on Twitter. Walking around Kabul, hard stares, mood changing, people not just sad but angry, blaming the United States for abandoning the country to war, chaos, and the Taliban. And here's another one. On the ground in Kabul, Afghanistan, as the Taliban advances and U.S. embassy personnel are being evacuated. Now there's a real climate of fear and dread of what the future holds. I pray for the poor innocent people in Afghanistan coming under power of the Taliban. As they were saying in different news interviews with the talking heads that the United States has been there around 20 years now, and all the Taliban had to do was wait. Just wait it out. The Americans had to hold it well. They are leaving now, it seems like, to the enemy at least, with their tail between their legs as they're running out. And now the Taliban that waited patiently is now taking over. So what does this mean for all of us? We're going to be going now to our guest, Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem. He's a researcher, former lecturer at Ben-Gurion University, and has authored over 80 books and 400 research papers on science, history, and more. He commentates on Mideast and world issues. Welcome to the show, Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem.
Well, the subjects that we're talking about are so sad today that I don't even feel welcome. Sorry.
Yes, I understand. It's just devastating. Devastating news wherever we go on the globe. Go ahead. Where would you like to start?
Well, let's. First of all, it's the second major humanitarian and human crisis engineered by the Biden maladroit administration or misadministration or whatever that horror can be called. I don't even know what to call it anymore.
The first one being, tell our listeners.
Well, the first one was the tremendous crisis on the American southern border. Over 1 million people have already crossed the border illegally since this carnival gained the White House. Of course, all of them are criminals, so none of them have any compunctions about engaging in criminal activities. Remember, tens of percent of these people who are actively engaged in running drugs, running weapons, smuggling people, prostitution, slavery, child labor, etc. We've seen the crime rates throughout the United States rise to an extent that is unprecedented since basically since the Dark Ages in Europe.
We'll talk about that later.
I'm not exaggerating. I know I have the numbers, for anyone who wants. The murder rate in Chicago has risen by 65%. The murder rate in New York has risen by 58%.
We're going to talk about this in the last segment. Let's get on to Afghanistan. Otherwise, we'll miss our chance to inform our listeners about what's going on there and what it means.
Yeah, well, you asked me what was the first one.
Okay, so let's concentrate on this segment on Afghanistan because it's very, very frightening in my opinion with this Taliban taking over again. I feel just for the women, I feel so bad and what's going to happen to them. As we're talking, Kabul is already invaded by Taliban forces. The American embassy is destroying its papers. It's all of its things there before they flee. How is this going to affect us?
Well, this is affecting everyone. First of all, the American embassy staff has been destroying papers and etc. For quite some time now. They knew the truth, even if the imitation news media refused to report it correctly. We're already seeing in the skies of Kabul helicopters flying, just like we saw with the fall of Saigon. Thousands of people, of British citizens, Australian citizens, American citizens are attempting to flee. Some of them are being allowed to flee by the Taliban, who couldn't be more pleased to get rid of these awful people. I almost said something nasty on air. I say you would not be pleased with me. Things are going from worse to worse. In terms of the women, your concern is absolutely correct. What we've been hearing from the provinces where the Taliban are already entrenched, remember, this whole thing is 2 weeks. America went in to fight and degrade the Taliban for 20 years, spent thousands of American lives, trillions of dollars, and the result is within 2 weeks, the Taliban took over. 2 weeks.
Terrible. Terrible. And I want to say this, which I told you before we started the show, and that was that anybody who is relying on the United States as a true ally can't be sure that they will be a true ally, because they can just up and leave you to pick up the pieces or not even be able to do that.
Well, I think can't be sure is much too generous. I think they can be absolutely certain that America is not an ally, cannot be relied upon for anything anymore. And I don't think I'm not. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not talking about the American people. Heaven forbid.
Right.
The American people are marvelous.
You're talking about
people.
this administration.
They care wonderfully, and they try very hard. But the American military are basically a bunch of incompetent fools. They lie to their own people. They lie to their government. They're incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. As long as it makes a lot of noise and costs a lot of money, they're thrilled.
Yeah. So now that America, in my opinion at least, and many other people's opinion, has gone down in stature for being a reliable ally. And we're seeing the Taliban celebrating this huge victory against this big superpower, America, and death to America is what they say. How is this going to affect the rest of the world now? I mean, we know what lies in wait for the poor Afghanis. The world.
Every place else in the world is very much aware that America does not have their back. Every place is Japan, for the first time in 75 years, is rearming. They've been a pacifist country by the Constitution that was forced upon them by the government of the United States after World War II. They are rearming now rapidly. The Philippines, there's already been a clash between the Philippines and the Chinese Navy in the South China Sea. Africa. They all know that the American umbrella there is basically full of holes. It's worthless. It affects everybody immediately now. No one is not affected. No one is affected later. Everyone is affected now. Today.
Okay. Mordechai, we do have a caller. Before we go to our caller, I just want to read this. I'm finding this on Twitter right now. This is from Yalda Hakim. She says, this is from a female university student in Herat. She says they were denied access to their university and were told that I don't know how to pronounce this, Quetta Shura would make a decision about whether they could attend, and until then they must wait at home. These are the women now are not allowed to attend the university already with the Taliban there. Let's go to a caller. We have joining us Tar from Kansas. Hi there, Tar. What's your comment or question for us?
Hi. It's a shame what the United States has done in the whole Middle East. But I was wondering, is it a possibility that the Taliban would have taken over Afghanistan sooner or later, even if America had never been there, in their strength and how they've risen to power? I mean, it seems like they could probably take over almost any country in the Middle East if they want to.
Well, interesting question. Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem, what's your answer for Tar? Thank you, Tar.
There's a problem with your question. Sorry about that. It's not a question of could they have. The Taliban ruled in Afghanistan before the Americans came in. The declared objective of the American military when they went into Taliban Afghanistan 20 years ago was to degrade and unseat permanently the Taliban. That was the military objective that they defined, that they declared to be their ultimate objective.
We only have 30 seconds till the break.
Depose the Taliban. They failed totally.
We have 30 seconds till the break. Mordechai.
Sorry?
We have 30 seconds till the break.
Okay, so unfortunately that question is misphrased. It's not could they have. They did. They owned Afghanistan before then. They're simply coming back. The Americans' military's declaration of degradation failed.
They waited it out, and their waiting paid off. All right, we have to go to a break. When we get back, we're going to be talking about Lebanon. It is collapsing as well as we are here on a Sunday afternoon in Israel. What does that mean? Already before, we've already had 2 Lebanese, I believe, that tried to cross the border into Israel. They were not terrorists. They were just trying to flee the country and looking for a better life in Israel. So what's going to happen? What does that mean for Israel, our northern neighbor, and for everybody else? We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Steve Miller.
And I'm Matt Zucker.
Join us for Lighten Up, where we take a look at the week's current events in Israel and from around the Jewish world through a humorous lens.
If you've been paying attention during these crazy times, you know that it's a challenge to parody life anymore. But join Steve and I as we give it the old college try. Not only is being happy an obligation, but life is just too short to take it all so seriously.
So join me, Steve Miller.
And me, Matt Zucker.
For Lighten Up every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Israel, only on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Just to close off the news about Afghanistan, I want to read to you again what they are reporting now. This is from someone on Twitter, Richard Engel is writing here. Walking around Kabul, hard stares, mood changing. People not just sad, but angry, blaming the United States for abandoning the country to war, chaos, and the Taliban. And the U.S. Embassy in Kabul posts here, POTUS has authorized, this is how they're, what's the word I'm looking for, like not marketing it, but using these flowery words to whatever. Listen to this. POTUS has authorized the deployment of approximately 5,000 U.S. troops to ensure an orderly and safe drawdown of U.S. Embassy and other allied personnel. That's what they're calling it, a drawdown, instead of running with their tails between their legs. It's just, I feel so bad for those people. But let's go to some other populations around the world right now that are having a very hard time. In Lebanon, these stories are coming out now about an explosion in Beirut that took place. Many people killed and injured. Horrifying video footage of the people who were burned and injured in this terrible explosion as well. Go along with that the country itself is collapsing, the economy, the electricity has been turned off. Let me just read a couple of headlines and then we'll go to our guest, Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem. Here, this is from France 24 News. Beirut explosion, Lebanese mark explosion with marches. It's a country rife with poverty, instability, hopelessness, and many Lebanese have been forced to flee. And anybody who can flee, by the way, has fled. They have to get passports, they have to get visas, but there just seems like little hope there in Lebanon as it crumbles and collapses. No electricity in many places. Bakeries have said that they cannot bake bread for the people. It is a catastrophe what is happening in Lebanon. Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem, where would you like to go with this story here?
I can't help but recall the stories told some years ago by Bridget Gabriel, who spent her childhood in Lebanon and managed to get out there at the height of the civil war that took place there between the Lebanese and the Palestine Liberation Organization, who created a horrible humanitarian catastrophe there, and it's repeating itself again. This happened in I believe it was the late 70s when she got out. And the same thing is happening again. Lebanon is an unbelievably beautiful country in terms of its geography, its flora and fauna. It's been totally devastated first by the PLO and now by the Iranians. The country
And the
is
Hezbollah.
totally controlled by
The Hezbollah,
Iran.
don't forget.
It's a satrapy of Iran. And Iran has, with utmost cynicism, literally intentionally destroyed the country for its own purposes, with total cynicism of the most profane and gross kind.
Let me read out this headline for you, Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem. It says here, this is the At Jerusalem Center is reporting, Israel fears that Iran plans to launch a two-front campaign via the Hezbollah in the north and Gaza terrorists in the south. This joint action will aim to exhaust the IDF, the Israel Defense Force, prevent Israeli strike on Iran, and concerns grow now after Gaza terror chief visits Tehran. Would you like to remark about that?
Well, this plan has been an operational plan that they've discussed quite openly. They've been talking about it now for years. That's their ultimate objective. Is they call it a ring of fire, that they wish to surround Israel with a ring of fire. They've been trying to take over in Jordan as well. Fortunately, in Jordan, they have not succeeded in taking over. That's the declared objective. Israel has been fighting this covert war now for many years. Nothing new about this. This is basically what Iran does. Iran is a country totally controlled by people who are insane, who are unbelievably cynical, and whose only objective is mayhem. And that's what they do.
So getting back to the Lebanese people, because we already know what the threats are for Israel, do you believe that there may be some Lebanese who are going to try to cross Israel's northern border to get into Israel?
Always, of course they will. They always have done that. They always do that. They certainly should do that. I can't find fault with them for trying to do that. Remember, it's not a question of them looking for work. It's not. We're not talking about the people that come from Africa trying to find a better life. They're trying to find a life. They want to stay alive. The situation in Lebanon is literally life and death.
So why don't they maybe try to get into Turkey or Syria? I mean, at least in Syria, it's the same language, and in Turkey, it's the same religion. I mean, there are Muslims there in Turkey as well. They're both Islamic countries.
Well, not really. First of all, the flavor of Islam in Turkey is not the same as it is in Lebanon. In Lebanon, there are many, particularly in the south, there are many Shia, and there are almost no Shia in Turkey. And Turkey has its own flavor of Islam, which is not quite Sunni and not quite Shia. So it's not really the same religion. It's close to the same religion. It's not quite the same religion. But beyond that, if they try to flee into Turkey, they'll be shot, because Turkey guards its borders not the way Israel does by capturing people and either sending them back or whatever, or sending them on to someplace else, but it just kills them. That's Turkey is this lovely place that likes being nice to people. So that Turkey, some of them can manage to get into Turkey, but it's hard. Syria, of course, itself is a horrible travesty of humanity. Everything there is just awful. Syria basically is right now Stone Age. I mean, nobody in their right mind would want to go to Syria. These people remember, these are people that up until a few years ago were the richest people in the Middle East. The richest and the freest people in the Middle East.
In Lebanon.
In Lebanon,
yeah.
yes.
And I want to remind our listeners.
One of the worst hit countries in the world. They're actually as bad as Yemen, if that's believable.
Yeah, I want to remind our listeners that they used to call Beirut in Lebanon the Paris of the Middle East. It was a place where, and that's why, really Israel should be having peace with Lebanon, because Lebanon wasn't a country that was so ideologically and religiously, strong there. They were more business people, and like the Riviera and et cetera, they're more interested in business, and they really should have been able to make peace with Israel, and it's a pity that escaped. But I want to tell everybody also.
I have to correct you on that.
Okay,
actually.
please do then.
It was a peace treaty with Lebanon. It was a signed treaty, but it was denounced afterwards.
I know that Menachem Begin was wanting to get the Lebanese to sign a peace treaty with Israel, but.
No, Pierre Jumail signed the treaty, and for that he was assassinated by Iran.
And what year was that?
Oh, I don't remember.
Very interesting. That I'm not aware of, and I'm glad that you shared that. I do want to say, I don't know if you have Netflix, Mordechai, but to our listeners that are curious about Lebanon, what it looks like, a little bit of the culture there. I watched a show. If you don't mind reading subtitles, I found it very interesting. It's called. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Al-Haiba, and it's spelled Alhayba. That's two words. Al is one word, and Hayba. Al-Haiba, and it's a very interesting series. It's only one season. I think that they made it for the Ramadan. They make like maybe 30 episodes. So when people are home and they fasted, they've had their meal, they sit around and they watch a television show. But it was very, very interesting. I would recommend it if you're curious about Lebanon, Lebanese and Islamic culture, etc. A very interesting, much different than what we would see in the West. So highly recommended if that interests you at all.
People are really, really good people, really good people, and I'm not just saying that. I've known many of them. They really are good people.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, and I hope that we have peace soon. I hope we have peace soon. But
there's nobody to have peace with, because there's no longer a country there. It's been totally destroyed.
Well, it's. I believe that we're in the end of days. That the Messiah, the Mashiach, will be coming soon. Please, God, it should happen. And I have to tell people that if they're not familiar with the 12 tribes of Israel on the map, that southern Lebanon actually belongs to the Jewish people. It's the tribes of Asher and Naphtali who have their territory in southern Lebanon there. So that would be interesting. Get some coastal property, buy an apartment up there on the Mediterranean. Anyway, we're going to be back. When we do, we're going to talk about the crime wave, the exploding crime wave in the United States. Very, very sad to see as well. Such a great country and what's happening there. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back.
Are you tired of political correctness and the fear that you might offend someone?
I'm not afraid to offend you.
Wow, look who's talking tough.
One has to be tough to keep sane today.
Hi, I'm Alan Skorsky.
And I'm Bela Seabrow.
And join us every Wednesday for The Definitive Wrap as we interview the most sought-after guests and expose progressive trends that masquerade as enlightenment but actually destroy our freedoms.
We are the No Woke Zone, so buckle up to this exciting show.
Buckling up, but I'm driving.
Sure, you can drive, but I'm the navigator.
Tune in for the No Nonsense, The Definitive Wrap Show, every Wednesday on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I'm just letting everybody know that if you're in the chat room, I'm just about to post the name of that Lebanese series called Al-Haiba. I think that's how you pronounce it. You can look it up on the internet, and if you have Netflix, you can watch it if you don't mind subtitles. Okay, so as we are going into the last segment of our show, we're going to be talking about the exploding crime wave in the United States. Of course, the leftist Antifa and the Black Lives Matter and the fear of being called a racist if you try to tackle the crime rate there, as well as the illegal immigrants coming into the United States. Many of them don't have professions. They don't have a place to live. Some of them are good, decent people, and some of them are not good, decent people. And you don't know who is who. But this is all contributing to the crime rate. As well, you've got terrible inflation going on now in the United States. Where is this all leading us? Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem.
Well, as I said at the beginning, more than 1 million illegal migrants have arrived in the United States. Remember, all of these things have additional effects. I mean, all of these million people that have, let's call them more ambition. We'll call it that to place it in a very positive frame. They've left their own countries, so those countries are bereft of large portions of their population, portions that would probably perhaps even create jobs and create businesses, which is what they theoretically intend to do in the United States. Most of these businesses they create in the United States are illegal businesses, but that's a separate issue. So these things have effects that are well beyond just the United States. Many Central American countries are on the verge of collapse because of what Biden did. That's a statement that people do not hear in American news outlets. Many of these Central American countries, because of Biden's irresponsibility in opening the border in a totally irresponsible manner for a flood of people, countries like Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador are on the verge of collapse. The same kind of collapse that we're seeing in other places in the world. He's literally sucking out people, some of the highest quality people that these societies produced. And all of these, of course, are young people. So the crime rate in America is skyrocketing. I started by giving a few numbers. I won't give many. Murder rates in Chicago rose by 65%, in New York City by 58%. I can go on, but Tamar will slap me if I do.
God forbid. Go.
Basically, in the 200 largest cities in the United States, the average rise in crime is many tens of percent, in some places hundreds of percent. In every single city above 100,000 persons in the United States, crime rates are rocketing skyward. Not always only in murder, by the way, but in other things as well. All kinds of crime. Prostitution is way up. Child slavery is way up. There are hundreds of thousands of slaves in the United States today. Again, the news services do not want to talk about this. Hundreds of thousands of enslaved people in the United States. And anyone who wants to search for any of these things, these are not opinions that I'm stating. These are things that can be found on the internet. Just 2 days ago, I think it was on Friday, Senator Tom Cotton wrote a major article about it. And that's just one view. He's an exceptionally bright and exceptionally active U.S. senator. We're talking about a civilizational collapse. We're talking about numbers that we have not seen, that humanity has not seen since the time of the European Dark Ages. The worst civilizational collapse since the fall of the Roman Empire. Can the United States survive this? I don't have an answer.
Well, I mean, if they get somebody tough into office after this, after people are tired of police being defunded etc. Couldn't they just get tough? I mean, look what Rudy Giuliani did to New York. New York was crazy, and he cleaned it up.
New York. Sorry, did you say something?
I'm saying that, New York was crazy with crime and pickpocketers and muggings all the time. And Rudy Giuliani went in and he cleaned it up.
Yes, but he had support. And remember, you're talking about a period when this was, what was it now? 40 years ago when that happened? Since that time, it's not just a question of the police. He did it with the police. But what happens now is that the teachers' unions are behind the crime, are behind the so-called defund the police concepts. The teachers' unions. They're teaching the children to despise the police. They're teaching the children to despise American culture. Can these ills be simply fixed by somebody coming in who is tough? I don't think so. This goes beyond tough. This is really, really difficult issues.
Well, then maybe the United States will break up into, the left and the right. People who want to keep America great and other people who want to fundamentally change America to, this new left that's invaded it.
Well, we're seeing now an attempt to in California to elect a new governor, the so-called recall of the governor that's there now, who's also a horrible catastrophe. And some of the people that are running for governor in California appear to be talking about things that sound sane. Can they actually accomplish what they're talking about? I don't know. California has been trying now for, I think it's 30 years, to create a rapid transit system. They spent tens of billions of dollars on it, and not one track has been laid.
Okay, so So in the last 4 minutes of the show, what do we need to learn from all of this? What do you want to leave us with?
Well, I want to go off in a different direction altogether. I want to go off in a positive direction. Can I do that?
Please. It's been so depressing, all this news.
That's what I said at the beginning. All the news today is so depressing that it's horrible. But right now, by the Jewish calendar, we're in the year 5781. Well, a few years back, in double quotation marks, in the year 2318, a general in the name of Dan passed away. Dan, who was the son of Yaakov, the son of Jacob. And the date of when he passed away is the day after tomorrow. So, first of all, we need to know that the Ethiopian Jews are considered to be the tribe of Dan, one of the 10 lost tribes that is now unlost. Remember, 2 of the lost tribes have returned to us. Tribe of Dan and the tribe of Menachem have both returned. So the tribe of Dan is the Ethiopian Jews. Thank God. They've returned to us. They're marvelous people. Some of the most polite people I've ever met. Their contributions to Israeli society is marvelous. And how do you say it in English? Yom HaIlula. The date of the founder of the passing away of the founder of the tribe is the day after tomorrow. And it's if we're now 5781, that was in 2318. So anyone who want to do the arithmetic, how long ago that was, just a few days ago in terms of the Jewish calendar.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of interesting. Well, do you know of any other people that can look at and celebrate the dates of their founders after more than 2.5 millennia?
It is extremely unique, and if anybody wants to know more about the lost 10 tribes and where they disappeared to, there are many people who've done research. I know one that I've interviewed sometimes. His name was Yair Davidi, and his website is Britam, Britam, I believe it is, and you can look there more about where it's believed that many of the lost 10 tribes have gone to around the world.
And by the way, one of the lost tribes, the tribe of Reuven, lives in Afghanistan. To close the circle a bit.
Reuben in English. Reuven is Reuben in English, one of the tribes of Israel. Well, listen, a lot of people are saying that there's a lot of theories about who is from the lost tribes, etc. Time will tell. We have 45 seconds left to the show. I want to thank you all for being with us. And Dr. Mordechai Ben-David, sorry, Ben, you're talking about all these tribes. Okay, and I'm thinking of King David. And I'm trying to find the website for Britam at the same time that we're here talking. It's britam.org for the lost 10 tribes. Britam.org. That's with Yair Davidi. He's written dozens of books, I believe, about this, and you might want to take a look at what he believes where the tribes went. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. Thank you, Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
If you're hearing this message, everyone else can too. Advertise with Israel News Talk Radio and get your message out to people. We'll build a personalized package for you. Contact advertising at israelnewstalkradio.com.
Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hey, this is Jake in Anchorage, Alaska, and I love listening to all the super interesting interviews and up-to-date information on what's happening in Israel.
Hello, this is Anna King, originally from London, now living in Israel. And what can I say? Israel News Talk Radio is my cup of tea.
My name is Bhaskar. I'm from India, and I love listening because you get to know the truth and wonderful voices from this lovely country.
Mom!
Okay, wait a minute. Hi, this is Chava Dax, and I'm calling for the rolling hills of Ma'ale Adumim, just north of Jerusalem. I always listen to Israel News Talk Radio to get all the latest news and commentary and to keep me up to date every day.
This is Sarah Dax from Ma'ale Adumim, and I'm 12. I wish Israel News Talk Radio was boring so my mom wouldn't listen to it all the time. Mom!
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.